Great. Um, so I'm gonna go over the creative development stuff. I don't have a camera on my studio computer, but I find that works better anyway because it um kind of just saves the bandwidth for the audio. So I'm gonna go to the slides. And I don't work directly for Creative BC. It's a really great program. Basically, there's a few of us that have gotten a lot of grants before with Creative BC that they bring on to do outreach and grant coaching. So we work there pretty much for like 4 or 5 weeks, but we kind of work as contractors and we reach out to people, of course, students, grads, people, all ages, and try to tell them about the grants. And then we can also do one-on-one calls with them. So if you follow me on Instagram, Hussein DJ Aslam on Instagram, there's a link in my bio that is to book a one-on-one grant coaching call. So this will be like the information about the grant, and then there's a couple other grant coaches too. So if someone else is a better fit for what you do in your genre, then of course, book it with them. But anything that's like more a technical question about the actual guidelines, whether you qualify or not, the form isn't working, like any more details, that you got to talk to Creative BC staff, and Joseph is the contact, and it'll be in the slides that I show you. So um just to kind of explain what that relationship is.
Sorry, Hussein. I think there's someone in the waiting room,
Oh, go for it.
but you're a host now, so I realize I
Oh,
can't let them in.
mute Tayo in the waiting room. Admit.
Yeah,
Got it.
thanks.
Great. And then I am recording, so if you want to ask questions as I'm going, please feel free. Just know that those are going to end up in the recording, which we're going to put on YouTube. If you don't want to have your question recorded, just take a note of it. And then at the end, when I'm done the slides, I'll stop the recording and then we'll do any other questions after that. All right. So now I'm going to go to the slides. Maximize here. Perfect. So Amplify BC. It was also called the BC Music Fund before that. Creative BC is the overarching funding body, and then they have different programs within them. So Amplify BC is the music side. Of course, we acknowledge the lands, languages, and cultures of the 34 First Nations that are indigenous to what we now call BC. The creative industries are fortunate to live and work on their unceded territories, myself included. Um, Please explore the indigenous language heritage on the First Peoples maps, which is so cool, created by the First Peoples Cultural Council in collaboration with First Nations communities and indigenous artists, language champions, elders, knowledge keepers, and cultural workers. So you can go on those maps and see the actual lands of you if you put in your address. It's really cool. And if you want indigenous screen office protocols, if they ever come up, and anything else that you guys do as well, there's also a QR code here. Uh, and I'll mention First Peoples Cultural Council because they also have grants specifically for Indigenous artists. And I got to work with an amazing Squamish Nation artist, Lady Sincere, and we're actually working on a First Peoples grant right now. Um, Ground rules, any requests for clarity or information helps everyone in the process. So that's why all questions are welcome. But like I said, I'm just recording right now. So if you want to wait, that's fine. We'll provide an overview of the grant and then leave space for questions at the end. This is for this intake, but I find that most of the guidelines haven't changed. So if you're watching this in the beginning of 2025, it's probably still fine. Hopefully we'll get to do this again and update it again next year. Um, each of us are coming to their own perspectives to the sessions, which is totally fair. And then this is what I mean. After this, if you have more technical questions, you want to email them. But if you want to just actually have someone read over your grant application, then you can book a one-on-one call with me. All right, so just about Creative BC, especially in your SAE careers, like after you graduate, you are going to end up working in so many different fields. And Creative BC plays, a little role in all of those industries. So it's an independent society created by the support of the province to sustain and help grow BC's creative industries, motion picture, interactive, and digital media, music, and sound recording, and magazine and book publishing. The Society delivers a wide range of programs with services with a mandate to expand BC's creative economy, which is insane. Like the fact that these guys exist to just help us be creative is amazing. Uh, so there's all the industries that they work in, and of course, today we're most interested in sound recording. But a lot of sound people end up working in the film industry and independent projects in film, a lot of film tax kind of stuff, film grants as well. So they put it all into motion picture. A lot of audio people obviously work there as well, and of course in the creative multimedia industries. So these are your people that actually work at Creative BC. Joseph is your main contact for this grant. Navreet for different music companies. And again, I feel like grads from SAE and other music schools are just people that kind of work their way up in music, work in live events. And they also have a live music grant, and Navreet works on that grant as well. Sandy, Gina, and Shannon are the other staff for this year. So what is Amplify BC? Funding for BC's music industry began in 2016, and that was called, if you ever hear me in other videos when I refer to the BC Music Fund, when it first came out, it was called the BC Music Fund. Then it got rebranded into Amplify BC. I'm talking about the same program. What is administered by Creative BC? In April 2023, in addition to 2.25 million was committed by the province of BC, extending Amplify BC programs province-wide until 2027. Why this is so cool is because every year we didn't know if it was going to get renewed. Now we got a big renewal, so we know we're good till 2027. But this is why the final reports are so important, because Creative BC will then, and even just the number of applications, they can show, like, look at how many people are applying for this funding. There's obviously a demand for this funding. And then the final reports lets them know, look how many jobs we created, look at how many people we paid. And why this slide is so important is every grant has its own let's say like fees, like subject, like theme that they're trying to promote. Is it a cultural grant that's trying to diversify the culture and help different cultures shine through? Is it a grant about Canada and promoting Canada overseas as a country? Like, what is the core understanding of that grant? Because that's gonna basically, it's like the foundation of the whole house. So the Creative BC grant is an economic grant. It's about creating more and more jobs in BC, and that's why it's funded by the BC government. So it's very important when you're writing that grant and thinking about what is it that you want to do. This is an economic grant, right? It's not an artistic grant. Um, it's not like a just a promotional and become popular kind of grant. It's an economic, make money for you and make money for other people grant. Amplify BC programs, these are all the ones that fall under music. So music industry initiatives is right now. If you have something cool that you want to do in the music industry that doesn't fall into these ones, you can submit a one pager before you do the whole grant, and they'll let you know right from the one pager. Record in BC is for artists that are outside of BC. So if you're ever producing an artist that's from Toronto or from the States, or you've networked and they want to come record in BC, this will cover costs for them, which means they're trying to attract right jobs to BC. They're trying to bring other artists here, just like how we want to attract film, like Netflix shows and things like that. They're trying to attract producers and artists to come and do music here. Career development is what the rest of these slides are going to be about. Live music, like I mentioned, these two I feel like so many people in Vancouver need to be applying because we work in these two industries so much. Demo recording, if you don't get your career development grant or you read through it and you feel like you're not quite ready, you don't meet all the standards, then there is a demo recording grant in March. And this, it might be a chance for us to do another Zoom when those slides and guidelines come out. Um, Demo recording. So I kind of, these three kind of like fit together. Business foundations and music company are both, music company style grants. If you guys ever start or launch a music company, open your own studio, start an events company, work in an events company, besides the actual event, for costs that are like ongoing, things that you are doing every year that are part of your business or part of something that you want to expand more on the business side, these are grants here. And this is unbelievable. Like, I started Divinity DJs with no grant funding, and I started my music career with no grant funding. So the fact that this exists is, like, to me, it's absolutely insane that you can go into music and not have to put in all your own capital. Like, yeah, it's I hope people like understand how like huge of an opportunity this is. And again, it's because they see that creators with a small amount of money can actually do a lot in the economy. So, what's the point of the Career Development Grant? It supports the economic growth and career development of emerging and established BC artists in the areas of sound recording, marketing, and music videos. Who can apply? BC-based emerging artists, and established artists. There's two categories. It supports recording music videos and marketing. The total budget is 1.2 million, and the grant amounts for emerging artists max out at 10, and established artists it max out at 30. Grants will provide 75% of project expenses with a 75% public funding limit. There's no public funding on Indigenous applicants. So when you're doing your budget, remember, you're going to have to fund 25% of it, right? So you need that liquid. You need to be able to spend that 25% because they're going to only fund the other 75%. And again, when it started, it was only 50. So we had to spend half the money ourselves. What it's trying to say here is if you get another grant, like a factor grant, no matter what, all the grants added together, you still have to put in 25% unless it's an Indigenous application. Deadline, it's already open and it closes September 11th, which is actually a good amount of time for you guys to still put in a really strong application. What are the priorities of the grant? Increase and sustain earning potential and economic activity for BC artists, studios, recording professionals, producers, and music companies, which basically means providing jobs in those sectors. Developing audiences for BC artists locally, nationally, internationally, which means a job for you to be able to make money in the field, right? So it's like employing these people and at the same time creating a job for you. Invest in the creation and marketing of intellectual property and expand digital presence of BC artists and support a broad range of artists, including artists from systemically excluded groups who experience barriers to participation. Why I love this is because the one grant that some of us could have maybe accessed, but you have to be a hugely popular artist to get it, um, was the factor grants, which were focused on commercially viable music, i.e., something you would hear on the radio at that time. This one is not genre based. If you play spoons, but you go like, I have a huge following for my spoon playing and I book shows playing, great. Like if you can show them that you get paid and you're gonna pay people, there's no limit on the genre. And then Tion Gibbs, who some of you guys might follow on Instagram, amazing hip hop artist, who's a grant recipient and is also a grant coach this year. Eligible activities, sound recording activities, including singles, EPs, LPs in the form of original music. Look, I hope you guys are checking this out. Like, this is unheard of. Original music, covers, remixes, and interpretations of existing music. Recording support through this program must be intended for commercial release. I have never seen a grant that funds covers and remixes, but they realized after so much feedback from the industry that if you release like an original sounding cover, you can pull a lot of bookings from that. Those songs do really well, and sometimes you can use a cover, like a remix, to then launch an album. This is unheard of, and I had first, I honestly, I had a mixed reaction about it, being someone that's pushed so hard in the original music market, but ultimately, like, I'm like so glad they did it because it's such a great way to incentivize making sure your music can find an audience. And usually doing a cover of an artist in your genre or a remix of an artist in your genre is a great way to break in that genre. So this is unreal that they added this in here. So all of your sound recording activities, music video production, including official music videos, pre-recorded, live stream performance videos, and other promotional video content that supports a BC artist. Projects must take place in BC or engage out of province professionals remotely. Which, for example, like if you did your whole video and everything here, but you want to work with like a specific colorist that's in Toronto or in LA or something, then you could have that person color it remotely. Marketing activities, including photography, digital media, websites, bio writing, publicity, social media marketing, tour promotion, radio promotion. Vendors may be Canadian or international, although hiring BC vendors is strongly encouraged. And again, like if your entire project, everything was created in BC, but your market is, say you do K-pop and you really want to do a Korean focused marketing plan and you have to work with a Korean PR agency, you could justify that being like, look, 80% of my budget is in Vancouver or is in BC. 20% of my budget is in PR marketing in Korea because that's where I want to tour next year, right? Something like that would, as long as you can justify why you have to spend those dollars outside of BC. Emerging and established BC based artists. Music companies that represent a BC based artist. So if you had a management deal, your company could apply on your behalf. Music companies can be Canadian or international if they represent a BC artist. Music companies such as record labels may apply on behalf of artists on their roster. That's so like if you have a record label or you have a management, or if you are your own label and you're signed to your own label, then you could apply as your company instead, which is what I do. I always apply as my business. Music companies must have signed contract with the artist outlining their business arrangement and relationship. Music companies must issue all payments related to the project and maintain financial control over the project. Otherwise, the applicant should be the artist. And another wicked artist who you can follow, Gina Lina, who's also working as a coach, I believe, and is a grant recipient. And like that's what I'm saying, like genre, like Gina's genre and Tion and me, like all of our genres are totally different. So one of the main questions that you kind of get even in the coaching calls and by email is how do I know I'm an emerging artist or if I'm an established artist? So here's the slides. Emerging artists. Your annual earnings are at least 2 grand from your music activities. You're able to provide and interpret basic audience and sales metrics as indicated by digital platforms or performance history, maintaining an active web presence and create content that's affiliated to the project is basically, your artist brand on a public platform. Uh, Basically, if you just have a Instagram account that's you skateboarding and you're an amazing skateboarder, great, and you post every day, great, but that's not your music brand unless you're, somehow promoting your music through your skateboarding, for example. So they want to see like an Instagram, web presence, so TikTok, whatever it is, that's you, that's brand focused on your artistry. A history of performance, presentation, or distribution of works within your geographical area, a history of recording and releasing music with a minimum of 2 songs available on a public website or platform. This doesn't have to be Spotify. I'm like not, a huge fan of Spotify. Most of my releases are on YouTube, and they actually only end up on Spotify if it is because of a grant final report or like a Juno application or something where it has to be on the streaming services. So having these songs if you really focus on YouTube and you go, well, I have 5 songs up, but they're only on YouTube. Or I just did a grant call with someone. Well, he had like 100 or 200,000 streams on SoundCloud. I'm like, bro, kill it. Yeah, if you have, because I believe like sometimes you're spreading everyone out too far. So if you go, no, like I only have 5 songs out, but they're all on SoundCloud, bam, that's totally fine. Uh, and then established artists, you'll see that these are much more demanding. So up to 30,000, but again, if you read it carefully, like you'll know right away probably other artists in BC that fit these. So track record of media exposure in the form of awards, radio play, or other press, like the Georgia Strait, maybe um the Daily Hive, like stuff like that. Tour history with national and or international dates with affiliated press demonstrates a substantial audience on social media, streaming services, or at live performances, have produced an extensive body of recorded work, commercially released with a strong, recognizable style and sound, are supported by one or more industry professionals, such as a label, management, company, publisher, and I would add booking agent. Substantial, greater than, so 30,000 and above annual earnings from music activities, including touring, licensing, publishing, streaming, and album sales. So you might not still be working full time as an artist. You might have a job and you're pulling in maybe between you and your band or something, but it's very clear like the second we hit play, we know your sound, we know what artist that is. When we go see you live, it's packed. Um, that kind of vibe. So oh wait, there's no way for me to know if you guys have questions. Oh, wait, Lily, can you see if someone asks or raise their hand or types a question?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay, cool. So if you guys have a question, Lily will check the chat and then she'll stop me. That's cool, right, Lily?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, that would be our plan. So if you have a question, hit it in the chat. Um, who qualifies as a BC artist? Artist living in BC for at least 200 of the previous three for the previous year. Like 365 days. Like just write 1 year. To the grant deadline. Artists who have filed BC taxes in the taxation year prior, if legally required to do so. Artists where 50% or more of the permanent members meet the BC requirements. So if you have a band and some of your members are in Toronto or in Calgary, that's totally fine. But 50% or more are BC artists. Program updates for 2024, 25. So this is this one thing like the grant is almost identical every year. So everything that I just read to you was the exact same last year. The only three things that are different this year is this part. GST is now eligible within your project budget. You used to have to always like remove it out. Applicants must continue to maintain their BC residency during the application, evaluation, and on acceptance of the grant. Applicants who move during the evaluation are no longer eligible. Creative BC has implemented a new code of conduct for clients, partners, and stakeholders, which supports harassment-free workplace that operates in compliance with the laws. All persons and companies who work and seek funding for Creative BC must adhere to this code. I never had an issue with this, but I think some of the people at the office were getting harassed a little bit, and so if they feel like unsafe or you're being like extremely rude on the phone or bombarding whatever, they have the right to just, hang up the phone, close, not respond, and that would basically kind of disqualify you from that application. So just act respectfully. Like no one's against you. No one doesn't want you to have the money, like not have the money. Like there's 500 applications. They can really only fund the best one. Each coach or each judge is reading like 125 applications. They score you and you can find out your score, or not your exact score, but you can find out what all the feedback was on your grant after the applications. Like it's a really transparent system. So that team is great. So just be nice to them and they'll be nice to you. Here's
We've got
some.
one question,
Oh, go
actually.
for it.
Do you have to meet all three of those requirements, i.e., filed taxes in BC last year?
Artists who have filed like I guess if you just moved to BC, it says legally required to do so. And those are the more technical questions that I would say just email Joseph about. Be like, this is what my unique situation is. Can I still apply?
Cool.
Cool. All right. Getting started on your application. Bam. So there's like as you fill out the form, there's a lot of boxes and people I think don't realize that those are all worth a little bit of points. Crux of your grant judging is actually the project plan. So it is like it should take up most of your time and the other stuff like you got to blow through pretty fast. That's on the website and then get deep dive and spend most of your time on the project plan. Um so there's a template of this like as you go through your grant, you just download it and then you can upload it as a Google Doc or you can open it up in MS Word. You can also type it out and then read it as an audio. Or you can even video yourself doing it. Especially if you feel like you're much more expressive on audio or video, you can just do it straight that way, or type it out and do it, or just type it and submit it. It's 4 pages written, 3 minutes, verbal or video. And these are all on that template that you download as you go through the application. What do you want to do? It's like 3 or 4 sentences. It's very succinct. It's like straight to the point like a preview of everything I'm going to read going forward. What are your goals for the project? They should be very specific as you go through this grant. So your goal might be, I want to increase my social media following. That's a horrible thing to write because that doesn't mean anything, right? Anyone could write that. A very specific goal would be, um, I performed 10 shows and over 10 shows, my Instagram grew by 100 followers. So I know every time I perform, I attract about 10 new followers, right? In my release plan, I plan to do 15 more shows. I'm gonna increase, and I'll increase my Instagram by this many. It's very specific, or if TikTok is your platform, or YouTube. And social media also doesn't make sense because there's like 9 different platforms. So what are you talking about? So every time you type a sentence, just read it back, and it's like 4 pages goes by so fast. So I don't say this lightly. Every sentence that you write, read it back and be like, is it general or specific? Anything that's general, figure out what it is that you're actually trying to do and then make it as specific as possible. When you see it, yeah, when I see I want to increase my social media following, I'm like, well, it doesn't, it like, what does that even mean? So, and there's a lot of other examples of stuff like that. So get out of that general language and really get into, it's a business plan. So it has to be very tight and very specific. How will this project increase your revenues and lead to business? Again, I want to make more money doesn't mean anything. I get paid this much per show, or I made this much from streaming revenue, or I've done this much in sync. So I've made this much money doing these things. Once I go through this project, given what I've already done from my history, this is what I would be expected to make in these, same categories. Or if it's something new, like you've never performed live and this is the project that's going to perform live, then, I've talked to other people that are in my genre. This is what they make per show. Well, I talked to booking agents, or promoters that book these artists. This is what they said I can expect to make once this album is released. Okay, it has to be very specific. What are the tools that are created through your projects that's going to build your audiences? And how does this artist create jobs and strengthen BC's music sector? 6 is the easiest one because you literally just label everyone that you're working with, put their name, put 2 or 3 sentences about them, and a sentence on why they fit for you. And then 7, I read a lot of artistic stuff in here. Did you see I mentioned nothing about my genre of music, how artistic I am, how great, nothing about that I nothing about that I mix Bollywood and Bhangra with hip hop. It does not matter because this is all about the economics. If there's something that is extremely pertinent that you think to this that is a little bit artistic or something that's coming in 2 years that doesn't quite fit the scope of this, or someone that's mentoring you that it doesn't come up anywhere else, this is where 1 or 2 sentences, if you feel it's very important, you can put it here. But all of this is about the economics of your grant. And if you notice, didn't even ask to listen to any music yet, right? There's not even a song that you have to attach. You can attach a demo if you're, depending on what you're applying for. But it's a very business savvy grant. And so if you're a very artistic person, you got to turn that business hat on. I know this is extremely hard to read. Again, as you go through the grant, there's a download link for this template, and there was a download link for this. And again, you just open it up in your Google Docs. Everything, when I read your project plan, I already know what your budget is. Where you come into like a major issue is when you read through the project plan, but then the budget and the project plan don't equal. So yeah, exactly what you're asking for in your project plan. Like if you're shooting a music video, I should see a whole music video team here. If you're asking to record, mix, and master a song, I should see a whole list of your producer, engineer, mixing engineer, all that stuff. If you're producing everything yourself, but you're working with 6 different artists on 6 different songs, I should see 6 artists. Whatever I've read here, I should see here. It should just be like a straight line. How they score, and again, this is on the website. I would say download this and just keep it open because as you're writing, this is literally how they're gonna score you. So as you're writing, they're telling you right here, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for relevance, and then these are the subheadings. We're looking for the impact and the subheading. So if you just read this while you're writing your grant, keep checking back to it, it'll really help tighten up your project plan. This is really cool that they released a scoring sheet so that you guys can actually see like literally word for word what the judges are looking for. Mm-mm-mm. So there's now talk about project funding and completion. So one of this, I think I should really hide here before I go down. Scan this real quick. There's something that you'll hear me in that grant video I did at SAE where I say capacity to perform, and I think that's written in here. Oh, right here. Financial viability and budget. How realistic and achievable is the budget? Does the budget include specific vendors and have vendor quotes been supported? So what I call this capacity to perform. Given, like I said, you're gonna say what you've done, what you want to do, and what it's gonna lead to. Is it realistic based on where you are in your career, what you actually have done, what your vendors have done? If you're attaching a photographer, but the photographer has never shot a live show before and you want that photographer to come to shoot your live show, it doesn't make sense. So the vendors have to have the capacity to perform and execute on what you want to do, and you have the capacity to execute on what it is. So if you've done a lot in your career, then yeah, ask for more. If you haven't done a lot in your career, then ask for less, right? Ask for something that's realistic to where you are in your career. And I call that the capacity to perform. If I'm reading this, can I see that you have the capacity to perform on this grant? Oh, Andrew is waiting. I'm gonna admit Andrew into there. I'm halfway done, Andrew, but that's okay. We'll record it and post it after. Project funding and completion. Okay, so successful applicants will receive 75% advance payment on their total grant amount once funding contract is signed and returned. To complete your project, you receive the balance of funding. Applicants must submit a final report. Narrative final report, which is like telling everything. It's like 5 questions, I think. It's explaining everything that you did. The detailed cost report, copies of invoices and proof of payment, and approved BC logos. So I'll talk about this a little bit. Narrative is pretty simple. Like you're literally just going to talk about everything that you've done. But the cost report is very intensive. So every time you pay someone, the smartest thing to do is ask them for an invoice. And then if you e-transfer them, which is the best way, also print screen the e-transfer. So for every person that you've paid, you have an invoice and an e-transfer like PDF, bam. And then they'll give you a template that you just right from the top, just put it in the template. This person got paid this much money. Because if that grant is running over a year, it's going to be really hard to remember and then go back and find and get all that stuff. So just build it as you go. Okay. For the logos, if you're doing a music video, for example, you have to then submit that video to the province and they have to approve your logos. So you want to give yourself like at least a month buffer from when your video is completed to when it's released so that you can go back and forth with them in case they don't agree with how your logo was put in the video. Sometimes it only takes a week. You do it right the first time and they go, great. But sometimes they won't like the way that the logo looks and they'll ask you to redo it and tell you kind of what changes that they want. So give yourself a month to do the logo placement. And if it is a music video, a smart thing is while your music video is in coloring, because the video doesn't have to be colored for you to get just the logo, because your coloring isn't going to affect their logo because it's already colored. So you can submit it uncolored. You can just mention that it's uncolored, but that the logo isn't going to change, so that while you're, in your last steps of coloring, you can still, BC can be like, someone at the province can be like also updating the logo and approving that. So they're kind of going simultaneously if you're on a tight timeline. Helpful application tips. The deadlines don't change really. Like this has always been in September. For the other one is always first quarter March. Start early, which is like why you guys just have enough time right now. Read the guidelines several times. Ask questions to staff if you're confused. Check out past recipients if that helps. What kind of projects they got funded. All the previous grant recipients are on the website. Have a clear sense of where you are again, they're talking about capacity to perform. Be honest with where you are in your music career and how this grant will achieve something specific. Have someone else read your application is a great idea. Sometimes you think you said something clear and specific, but someone else will read it back and it won't quite make sense. Don't be afraid to discuss money, metrics, and other measurable indicators. Answer the questions directly. Simple is better. I keep saying just don't have anything general. Everything should be extremely specific, clear, and straight to the point. And here's where they talk about grant coaching. You can book a grant coaching session. Link is in my Instagram bio. It's also on the Creative BC website. Yeah, discuss your application with a coach. Receive great feedback. It says opening soon, but it's available now. Open deadline. Oh, results community campaign. So you find out after you submit, they announce the winners about 12 weeks. That gives the judges all the time to judge. Supporting projects are occurring between. So if you've already started a project, you could still apply for any of those expenses that are after April 1st. And then all the way to December 1st of next year. Final reporting deadline is also December 1st. So that's why I say if you kind of plan to have your project wrapped by like October, November, then it gives you like 30 days to do that final report, get the logo, approved and all that kind of stuff.
Hussein, our grant, what are the costings for grant coaching sessions?
They're covered.
They're covered.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're covered by Creative BC
For everyone?
for
Okay.
like the coaches that are on there, like the ones that are on the site. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's amazing. Um, okay, so for questions or support, like I said, Joseph is your main go-to, and Sandy is your other go-to for this one. First Peoples, and I mentioned this before, if you are a producer and you're working with an Indigenous artist or you're an Indigenous producer or there's, it's a group with one Indigenous person or whatever it is, of course, you still apply for our career development. Um, but First Peoples Cultural Council is catered to Indigenous projects. So that's right here. You can just go to their website, FPCC. Um, Mentorship for grants. Creative BC supports. Yeah, like they work hand in hand together. FP, FPCC. Music BC. The thing that we're not funding in any of the things that I showed you so far with Creative BC is travel. So if you want a tour and you want to book, um, you know, a trip and you want to help cover the flights or whatever, you want to go do a showcase or any of that, that's covered by Music BC. And the thing that I love about Music BC is they have an industry music newsletter where they email out every month the Creative BC grants and their Music BC grants and the Factor grants. They're all in the Music BC newsletter. So, Music BC is an industry association. It's a not-for-profit association serving the for-profit, nonprofit industry, including artists, professionals, providers, studios, promoters, venues, festivals, producers, agents, managers, basically everyone that works in the music industry. The services that they include, they advocate for the music industry, they do education for people in the music industry, funding, networking opportunities. They throw their like own events where they invite people to come meet each other, essential information, which is through that newsletter, and showcasing. Hear It Now, I believe it's called, where you can apply they do those showcases through the year. ARC Accelerator Program is another one of their programs where emerging artists can apply to work with. It's like a retreat that they do where they, take a bunch of artists, help them work on their music with industry coaches. And actually, someone from SAE was an instructor at the ARC program when I came and spoke there last time. He had gone and helped with music production as part of ARC. Export trade initiatives, Jumpstart program. These are how you can book a grant coaching call with me right now. Jumpstart has a grant coach that you can call all year. I think it's Nancy. So if you're working on like a factor grant or this travel grant, they have their own grant coach there. They also have other people like social media people, managers, like different industry professionals that you can book a one-on-one call with depending on where you are in your career. So that's what their Jumpstart program is. It's really amazing. I've done it I called a person from SoCan because I needed some help with some royalty stuff. I called a person from Sync because I'm kind of working in Sync more. They do their own showcases. And then like I mentioned before, travel grants is where most people will apply for at Music BC website and the newsletter. Definitely get on the music. All the grants. They're like, well, how do I hear about these grants? This is the greatest newsletter for people in BC. And then you can become a member right here, which of course is all on their website. If you're looking for recording studios, you're looking for producers, you're looking for videographers, Creative BC has a knowledge hub where people that work in the industry can go and set up profiles. So you can go in there. I think there's even grant writers on there. This grant, I feel like because it's only 7 questions, you don't really need a grant writer. But like, a factor grant, like a JSR grant maybe. And past funding recipients and projects are all in the knowledge hub as well. Cool. And then we'll open it up to questions. Of course, follow them on Instagram if you don't. They're dope. Okay, great. So then I'm gonna stop the recording so then you guys can ask questions that aren't recorded. So I go to more, pause, stop recording, and